Hey, I'm Andrew Frueh, and today I want to talk about connectors and why they're important to me in my work. This is a wearable robot arm I'm developing, and I need to be able to test it and see that it works correctly. So I've got sort of a little joystick here that's like a tiny copy of the robot arm. You can see if I move the first bit there, that part moves up and down. If I move the second one, that does the same. So it's kind of like, yeah, it's working the way I want it to. It's great. And for me, what's really important is that everything is flexible and doesn't come unplugged. This is for performance art, so all these things need to be very robust. This little funny joystick is actually, in a recent video, I demoed soldering this little white connector directly onto the trim pot. And you can see why I did that is because now I've got two of these little trim pots, and I've made like a little funny joystick here with this little 3D printed thing. Super cheap, done, right? But because I've used connectors here, this is modular, and I can just unplug it and plug in something else, like this more proper looking joystick with thumbsticks. And see, so by using these modular connectors, all this stuff can just be swapped out, and now we can fire this up with a totally different joystick. And the first stick controls the first arm section, the second stick controls the second arm section, so we got the same kind of behavior there. Everything seems like it's working okay. This is way less intuitive than that little robot arm. It's a lot harder to drive with this. And I wouldn't really know that, I guess, until I plug that in and see how it is to do that, right? Especially if I'm wearing this thing. I need to know what it feels like to drive it with these different kinds of interfaces. So I've got two kinds of connectors that I use for almost all of this work. For onboard connections and soldered directly to the back of that little trim pot, I use this JST XH connector. It's very square. It usually needs a flat surface to sit on so that you can mount it correctly. But it is polarized, and then if I put the other connector on the end of the wire here, make sure I can't plug it in backwards, and it's got a nice little click when you plug it in so that it stays seated and won't come unplugged again. For performance art, this is really important, right? You need cables to be robust, and you need things not to come unplugged even if they're being tugged on. On the other end of this wire, for my midline connections like this, I'm going to use a JST SM connector. It's this black connector, and it's what I'm using on this little joystick, for instance, right? I can just pick this thing up and click that on there, and now I've got a good, reliable, robust cable all the way from the component to the board. It's flexible. I can run it through a garment or around a robot frame. And since robots move, these cables need to be able to move without wearing out at the connector, right? And stiffer wires tend to wear out at the connectors. So choose a flexible silicone wire and use the same connectors throughout your system, and then things become modular and they also stay robust. So hopefully that advice makes sense. Please leave me comments if you have any, and I'll see you next time.